Good afternoon, General Quander, distinguished guests, our representatives from the AOG, staff and faculty from West Point, and especially the plebe and yearling classes of 2025 and 2024. I am Lieutenant Colonel Charles Faint, the Deputy Director of the Modern Warfare Institute at West Point, and on behalf of our Director, Colonel Patrick Howell, it is my pleasure to welcome you to this Commandant Speaker event on Leading Through Adversity. In a moment, I will invite the Commandant up for initial comments, but before that, a few administrative details. As mentioned, the distinguished guests, representatives from the distinguished faculty from... Like I hear myself so much, I have played it across the computer. Fantastic. Okay. Yeah, Roger. Thank you. Our three guests, all current or former Army officers, have generously volunteered their time to talk about their life experiences and the way that they have led themselves and others through adversity. Their personal stories and their words of wisdom will serve you well throughout your time at West Point and in the Army. After the Commandant's introduction, each guest will have a few opening words and perhaps show a short video. After their opening comments, we will open the floor for questions. Viewers watching on MS Teams are welcome to type their questions into the chat. Cadets, please prepare your questions now. And now, our Commandant, sir.
Hey, thanks, brother. Hey, thanks and good afternoon. It's really my honor and privilege to introduce the first of these academic year Commandant series, speaker series. As leaders, we've got to garner different perspectives so that we can develop and be more inclusive, minimize parochialism, and really improve how we think and go about solving problems. As you look out into the environment in which we're operating in today, what do you see? What lies ahead? And what lies ahead along this journey when you depart from West Point? While it's exciting to think about, it's also important to recognize the reality of the world in which we live, a world full of possibilities, but also a world riddled with complexity and hardship. The world in which you will lead in when you depart here from West Point. As an officer, you'll be tested, you'll be challenged, and you'll face uncertain and complex situations. And that's why we're here today, to learn from experience and hear from those who have demonstrated grit and tenacity. Now, we're honored to have some incredible individuals here with us today who will share with you what it means to lead through adversity. First, I'd like to introduce Colonel retired Greg Gatson, a renowned motivational speaker who is a living example of courage in the face of adversity. West Point class of 1989, retired field artillery officer, wounded combat veteran, and he's an inspiration to us all. We also have Dan Futrell, the CEO of the Pat Tillman Foundation, former infantry officer and combat veteran who continues to lead with character and service to our nation. And finally, we have Lieutenant Marshall Plumlee, a former professional basketball player who gave up money to answer the nation's calls and join his brothers and sisters in arms. Let's give it up for outstanding panel members, and I'll turn it back over to Colonel Faint.
Thank you, sir. Gentlemen, in the interest of time, we're going to jump right in to your prepared comments. So, Colonel Gadson, sir, we're going to talk to you, sir. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Colonel Faint. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and a pleasure to be back and be amongst our future leaders of our nation in many capacities. I'll be brief, but we're here to talk about leadership in adversity. You know, everybody thinks of adversity oftentimes with this negative connotation. To me, I prefer to kind of think of adversity literally as change. Look, something isn't going the way we expected. Something isn't going the way we planned. And that's why you're here. This is why this institution exists, because we need leaders, but not only leaders, leaders of character. And it's your character, it's the foundations of your character that allow you to lead through adversity. Can you be honest? Can you be tough? Can you stand up under the pressures of doing what's right, of doing what's expected? And so that's how we build our character. You're building these habits that will hopefully become your character. And so leading in adversity it becomes instinct. I could have never imagined that I would be faced with the adversity that I was faced with. But my life, my challenges from coming here to West Point, dealing with the adversity of our day, dealing with the adversity of going to STAT because I failed something. Those are all opportunities to grow. Those are all opportunities to build on your ability to handle that change, to handle that curveball. Well, for me, it was an improvised explosive device in Baghdad in 2007. By all rights, I should not even be on this stage talking to you, but I survived it. Ultimately, the wounds cost me both my legs above the knee. And I wanted to quit. I wanted to give up because that wasn't in my plan. That wasn't in my vision. But I thank God that wasn't my character. Even in my lowest moments, quitting was foreign to me. Quitting was worse than anything that had happened to me. And so our character matters. What you put in every day, learning to be your best selves, is building on that character. You all will be faced with adversity from the very beginning, whether it's a report, whether it's a lost sensitive item, or whether someone's hurt or injured or killed. It's in your future. And so make sure that you're putting the work in now to prepare yourself for that adversity. Thank you.
Dan, over to you.
Thank you, sir. Colonel Gatson, these folks aren't going to lose any sensitive items. I don't know what you're talking about. Just kidding. My name is Dan Futrell, and I'm here representing the Pat Tillman Foundation. When we talk about leadership through adversity, I often want to tell a story about Pat Tillman, and I understand that a lot of folks in this room will already know in great detail who Pat was, what decisions he made, and how that ended up. I want to share a little bit more detail. Pat Tillman was somebody who was a football player in high school and in the National Football League. He was somebody who consistently, I skipped on high school, college, and the National Football League, and consistently he was told that he was too small. He was 5'11", so a little bit bigger than me, but I'm not in the NFL. He was told he was too small and he's too slow. Playing defense as a linebacker, everybody thought that he was just not going to be fast enough to get to the ball. And so he heard this consistently as he was growing up. In fact, he initially thought he was going to play baseball, didn't make the baseball team, and said, fine, I'll go play football. It's a little side note there. He was told that he could not join the baseball team in high school by the father of his future wife, Marie Tillman, who serves on our board. He was told he was too small, too slow, but he approached that challenge with a never quit attitude. And he continued to push himself on the football field and in all aspects of his life. When it came time to go to college, he very much wanted to play football during his college years. And he shopped his talents around a little bit and didn't get a lot of bites. And he earned eventually the last scholarship that was available on the Arizona State University football team. Here's a guy who, not a lot was expected of him. Again, you're too small, you're too slow. It's not going to happen. Okay, we'll take you on the team. We've got one spot left. Perhaps some of you have been that underdog where, not a lot was expected of you, and you could choose whether or not how you're going to respond to that. At Arizona State University, Pat earned a 3.85 GPA. He was not he was not just dedicated to excellence on the football field. He was dedicated to excellence in the classroom, and he kept pushing himself. He continued to read. He was known as a voracious reader of a variety of different texts, to include, while in Iraq, reading the Quran to educate himself. He was somebody who's very intellectually curious. In 1998, he was drafted as the 226th pick for the Arizona Cardinals. Again, don't expect a lot of you. You're in the 7th round. Everybody's kind of stopped paying attention to the draft by then. But he was picked after being the Pac-10 Defensive Player of the Year. We all know where this is going if you know Pat's story. So he was serving. He was playing for the Cardinals, and he became an All-Pro safety. He switched positions. And on September 11, he asked himself, "What am I doing for the world? What am I doing that's making a larger impact than myself?" And sure, he was a member of a team, an athletic team, and he felt the responsibility to his team that any teammates feel, that I suspect that you feel to your teammates in your company and elsewhere. For him, he said, "Hey, my team, the United States, is in trouble, and I want to make a difference. And I don't feel that my time in the NFL is making the kind of impact that I want to have." Perhaps there are other professional athletes who are doing that. But we know that Pat deployed to Iraq. He came back. He got his Ranger tab with the 2nd Ranger Battalion, and then he deployed again to Afghanistan, where in 2004 he was killed by fratricide. This was a tragedy, but Pat was an inspiration to so many that people sent checks, quite frankly, to the Tillman family, to Arizona State University, to the Arizona Cardinals, and said, "Hey, do something good with this in his memory." What they did is they created the Pat Tillman Foundation, and I'll be brief. The Pat Tillman Foundation, we exist to support veterans and military spouses who believe so deeply that their biggest day of impact hasn't happened yet. We go through a selection process to find values-based leaders, because we believe that there are not enough leaders who lead in the world like Pat led, who are selfless, who are humble, who are intellectually curious, who are dedicated to impact. And so that's why we exist as a foundation. I suspect that there are some, potentially 2030 or 2028 or 2035 Tillman scholars here in the room. When the time is right and you're going back to school because you love this place and you want more of it, please, reach out to the Pat Tillman Foundation, and we'd love to get to know you. Within our 750 Tillman scholars today, we have an astronaut, we have a mayor, we have a doula who helps mothers go through birth and make sure that is a comfortable experience. And by the way, I've learned a lot more about what a doula means in the last couple of years than I ever thought that I would. We have people who are studying cancer and trying to solve something that is a global problem. We have scholars who are leading on COVID as physicians in the ICU, and who are at the forefront of racial conversations in this country that are very important to maintaining the cohesion of the communities that we care about. Ultimately, I'm so honored to be here. This is a place that cares so deeply about leadership and character and service. The Pat Tillman Foundation cares about that as well, because Pat cared about it. And Pat was somebody who led through adversity, and I look forward to sharing more of his story with you today.
Thank you, Dan. And I believe we have a brief video to amplify your remarks.
When I think about Pat Tillman, I think of somebody who was exceptionally driven. He was driven by selfless service. He was driven by his commitment to excellence. He applied that to all that he did, from the football field to the battlefield. And because of that, he was a guy who was inspirational to me. Even 15 years later, that story still resonates with so many people because of the decisions that he made and the way that he lived his life.
Something unique with the Pat Tillman Foundation is the community of scholars that support you. So not only is the funding empowering, it's the community that rallies around you that really propels you to your area of impact.
Tillman scholars are doctors, they're scientists, they're policymakers, they're social workers, they're teachers. They really make an impact on not only a local, but a global scale.
I think you'd be hard pressed to find a Tillman scholar who's ready to rest on their last accomplishment. Everyone is always pressing forward, looking for the next problem to solve, looking for the next mountain to climb.
It's so remarkable to me that there was something more important to him than his life old passion play. And that something else was serving others, serving his country. That's what really stuck out to me about his story. And I hope I can live up to the example that he set.
Lieutenant Plumlee, I believe we have a video for you as well. Okay, go ahead.
We talk about the brotherhood and what our guys are doing. We particularly talk about the guys in the NBA, but there's a guy out there from our brotherhood who really I'm most proud of, and he's Marshall Plumlee. He decided to go into the military. He took ROTC here, became an officer, and although he was pursuing an MBA dream, his real dream was to be in the Army. He left that basketball part of it and committed himself to the service and went to Ranger Airborne School. Can you imagine 7'1" and in Ranger School? If any of you know what that is, that's not an easy thing. Or jumping out of a plane at 7'1" or at any height, really. But he was serving really well at Fort Lewis, Washington, and decided to try out for one of the elite units in our military, the 3rd Ranger Regiment at Fort Benning, and went through a 3-week period of testing. And you know what? He got it. And one of the things he said to me, I talked to him for a long time on the phone. He was so proud, and we're so proud of him. He said, Coach, one of the last questions with the board, and they really grill you, was, why do you want to be in the 3rd Ranger Regiment? And he told them, he said, when I was a sophomore at Duke, Coach went down to Fort Benning and spoke for General Brown, one of his former players. They were going to put together the infantry and armor in the military and combine them at Fort Benning. And when Coach went down there and speaking to all the leaders, he was given a number of things. One was a hat from the 3rd Ranger Regiment. And when he came back, he gave it, Marshall was saying, he gave it to me and said, I know how much you think of the military. Here's something that you might like. He said, when I got that hat, it was a dream of mine to be in this unit. And now that dream can become a reality. I get chills all over, and you get emotional. And he made it. God bless this kid, huh? What an amazing American. And anyway, I wanted to share that with you because you can see Zion dunking or Jason hitting jump shots and Kyrie and all these guys doing it. We're proud of them. But this is something you don't see. This level of commitment. And really, I tell guys all the time to follow their heart. No one that I've coached has followed his heart any faster and harder than this guy, Marshall Plumlee. We're very proud of him.
Lieutenant Plumlee, the floor is yours.
Yep. So I'm Lieutenant Marshall Plumlee. I'm the 3rd Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment Mortar Platoon leader. And I was thinking about how I wanted to introduce myself to you guys. And it came to me in a counseling with one of my section leaders. And my section leader, he put down the dip bottle and he said, sir, have you ever seen a turtle on a fence post? No, I've never seen a turtle on a fence post. He's like, well, if you did, you'd probably think that turtle didn't get there by himself. Someone probably had to put him up there. I'm like, my God, that's me. So I can tell you guys that I've gotten to be a part of some really cool things. I've gotten to win a national championship at Duke. I've gotten to be in the NBA, be in the New York National Guard, get to be with the 75th Ranger Regiment, go on a couple of deployments to combat zones. And you can hear it directly from me. It didn't have anything to do with talent. If there are any basketball players here, I was at the West Point basketball practice the other day, and they saw how not talented I was, a couple air balls in there. But it was because I tried to fight to earn spots on these good teams, to surround myself with these good people, to really chase that feeling of being in the room where you're not the smartest person in the room. I know you guys won't believe me because I'm 7 feet tall, but I'm in rooms in basketball where I'm not the biggest person in the room. And those are the really special environments when you get teammates like that you can be put on that fence post. You can get to be a part of some stuff that's really special. And one thing, I don't know what it is about this institution, but these great teams I've been getting to be a part of, they can't get enough of West Point. They love to come back here. And I've made several trips to West Point. When I was with Duke, Coach K made sure we came and visited you guys and saw what you guys were all about. In fact, I think we got in trouble for posting pictures online with your simulator guns or something. We didn't have trigger discipline. Then with the Knicks, with the New York Knicks, we'd come here for training camp. And I was a rookie at the time, so rookie hazing. I had to do the fire in the hole thing with the peanut butter. And then now I'm here with the team I'm most proud to be on, the 75th Ranger Regiment, and we're back again. If you get a chance to see any of the NCOs here, I encourage you to approach them, ask them questions. And again, if you take anything from me today, I would tell you that keep chasing being in those rooms. You're already in one in a big way. Being in West Point, you're surrounded by people, bright people that are going to challenge you. But even within that, I challenge you to ask yourselves, who are the people you're surrounding yourself by? And that's how I wanted to introduce myself, Turtle on a Fence Post.
Thank you. Gentlemen, thank you for those inspiring opening remarks. We're now going to open the floor for Q&A. Cadets, if you have a question, please either approach one of the microphones in the middle of the hallway or raise your hand and the ushers will bring you a microphone for your use. Gentlemen, while the cadets get ready with their questions, I have a few prepared questions to ask you to get things started. The first question is for all three panelists, but Colonel Gadson, I'd like to start with you, sir. The theme of this panel is leading through adversity. If you had to pick one thing that got you through the adversity you have experienced in life, what is that one thing, sir?
Yeah, I actually had a chance to kind of think about this question, and it's tough because you kind of move on in life. But I'm a yearling here at West Point. I'm a football player, and I'm a starter. And about halfway through the season, I'm no longer starting. I got fired. I wasn't getting the job done. And I wanted to make excuses. I wanted to blame it on injury or whatever. But at the end of the day, I wasn't good enough. I wasn't getting the job done. And I had to look myself in the mirror and decide what I was going to do about it. And I think when I think back at that moment, it's sort of a time, a space you have to dig in. It's grit, it's determination, it's a lot of things, but adversity, that's how it hits you. And what you don't want to be is you don't want to be in a position where you're thinking about giving up. You're thinking about quitting. You're thinking about sacrificing your values because you don't have the character to dig in. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Dan, same question for you. What gets you personally through adversity?
Sure. There's a variety. I think everybody in this room probably has experienced some form of adversity. And I think how you approach it, for me, has been largely driven by how I got to the moment that I'm in. And when I say that, what I'm talking about is all of the people that got me to this stage today, or all of the people that got me to, perhaps that got you to the seat that you're sitting in right now. We don't achieve individually. We achieve as a team. And though we might, get a high five or a pat on the back now and then, for me, what lands is the fact that I wouldn't be here if not for a variety of people kind of leaning in a little bit extra on my behalf. I'll share. I grew up in not a nonlinear trajectory where I went through foster care for a little bit, and eventually things kind of stabled out later in childhood. But they very well could not have. I had some half siblings where it didn't go as well. In my life, in that moment, there was a person who leaned in a little bit extra when I was going through this early part of my life and through foster care. There was a woman who was assigned to look after me, to in the absence of any parents, she was assigned to essentially like represent represent me in a legal system that's awkward as some legal systems are. And she was a corporate executive working for General Electric, living down in Florida. Didn't have to do it. Her life was generally comfortable, but she chose to go above and beyond in service to somebody else, in service to 4-year-old, 5-year-old, 6-year-old me, who she didn't know, but put in a lot of time. And as a result, things generally got better for me when in that circumstance. For most folks, it does not. And so thereafter, where I've had moments of challenge, for me, it can be easy just because I'm human to say like, oh man, like feel bad about myself or kind of get down on it. But what helps me out in that moment is knowing that her name is Bernadine Berube. What helps me is knowing that Bernadine, put in a lot of effort to help me get to this spot. And there's no shortage of other people who leaned in on my behalf. And that's the only reason why I'm here today. I don't forget that. And so, I walk, you see me walking around, after this thing, I'll give you the visual of like a huge rucksack on my back with 80 pounds of debt that I owe to people who've leaned in on my behalf and helped me get here. I carry that wherever I go, and I feel it. And so, if I want to get sad and take a knee because, oh man, like my legs are sore, like I know that I still need to carry that forward and do that for somebody else. And so that drives me quite a bit. And yeah.
Nice. Thank you. Lieutenant Plumlee.
What's helped me the most through adversity is really having a foundation on doing the little things right. And the best story I have to illustrate this was the NBA draft process. And for me, I'd committed, you start playing when you're 6 years old. I'd probably committed about 20 years of my life to getting ready for this moment, this one dream that's kind of on the horizon, making it to the NBA. And you go and you work out for these different teams. And if you're a top draft pick, you can kind of pick who you might work out for one or two teams. For me, I was taking whoever would have me. I'd walk to Orlando to work out for the Magic if I could. So I'm working out for, darn near 32 teams. And I try to also, while I'm working out, make sure I do the little things well, make sure I take care of the little things, not just play well. And I thought I kicked some butt. I don't know if God was looking out, but I played out my butt a little bit. I played better than I should have played. And then it came to draft night, and you have your family there, and you're surrounded by your loved ones, and the picks keep going, and they keep going, and then the night's over, and I wasn't drafted. And I remember I had a bad attitude. There's a moment of weakness there where I thought, man, that was stupid. 20 years and all the little things. Why did I do all the little things? It wasn't worth it. It wasn't enough. And then the next day I'm in the office with my agent, and a weird thing's going on. There's a bidding war for me between teams to sign me. They're trying to sign the first 30 draft picks and Marshall Plumlee. So I'd be the 31st person signed that year. And I'm ecstatic. I end up getting signed, and not to look a gift horse in the mouth, but as my agent, hey, why did they sign me? And he said, well, a couple of teams, they got the thank you notes you wrote. You wrote about 64 thank you notes together to all the teams you worked out for. They said they hadn't had a player do that before. Another team, they had someone from the front office, one of the deciders. He was in disguise in the taxi cab that picked you up from the airport. He was actually seeing how you treat him if you treat him nice, if you do the little things right. Another team said, hey, when you were in our cafeteria, we caught you on camera, go around and clean up all the tables and push in all the chairs. Another team really liked that. Phil Jackson said, hey, Marshall read my book and talked to me about my book. None of the players have read my book. So it's funny. It almost went sour there for a little bit. I almost punted all the little things to the side and said, hey, I'm never doing that again. But really, they ended up being my saving grace through adversity, through the most adverse moment in my life to that point. There were players taller than me, bigger wingspans. They could shoot better than me. But a lot of these teams were looking for a good teammate that would do the little things. They appreciated that. And I think the little things helped me through my greatest moment of adversity.
Thank you, gentlemen. Plebes and yearlings, are there any initial questions, or should I ask another? See a hand.
Colonel Gadson, sir, I have a question just regarding you coming to West Point. Do you truly believe that West Point prepared you to get through adversity, or is it something you were born with?
Thanks for that question. I would say it's really a combination of everything. I mean, of my upbringing. Look, my parents, they grew up in the Jim Crow South. They were born in the 40s. And they certainly shared experiences and lessons of dealing with a society that didn't treat them fairly, didn't treat them as they deserve to be treated. And so is that part of my DNA? Is that part of my upbringing that helped me appreciate that I could overcome? Most certainly. But West Point certainly, I say more than in a finishing way, but it cranks up the heat, as you know. It cranks up the challenges. You all have to manage your time, your resources, your energy. There's a lot of things that you're under a lot of pressure, and that pressure is there so that you develop, so that your character is finalized, your character is formed. I mean, every one of you in here was accepted because you have the demonstrated potential to be tremendous leaders in here. I mean, I don't think anybody got in here that had a rap sheet or had a reputation of being dishonorable or dishonest within your communities. I'm not sure that that would allow you to get in. So look, none of us come here as a finished product. The base of who you are has been established, and not everyone has had a straight path as you hear. I mean, broken families, challenges that you may never know, but you have the potential, and so I believe that this was a stage in the development of my character. But let me just tell you, it doesn't stop here. You're not finished when you graduate and you walk across that stage. You're not done. It is literally just the beginning. You know, you're in an environment where you literally can trust everybody here. And I'm not saying the Army is not that way. I'm not saying the military is not an organization that is trust, but not everyone has been through what you've been through. Not everyone is forged as hard as you've been, and you will be challenged. You will be challenged.
Thank you. That was an excellent question. Next question from the audience.
Gentlemen, first of all, thank you for coming. I just wanted to ask, what has been the most humbling experience for you, and what did you learn from that? Thank you.
Dan, let's start with you on that question, and Marshall, I think you gave a partial answer to this one as well, so I'd like to hear from you on this after Dan has a chance to respond. Go ahead, Dan.
Sure, thank you. That's a good question. What has been my most humbling experience, and what have I learned from that? In 2006, 2007, I was deployed as an infantry platoon leader to Baghdad, And I'd finished the infantry officer basic course at the time. I think it's they changed the structure a little bit. I went through Ranger School and then went straight to my unit. And in Baghdad in 06, 07, I was there pre-surge, and then the surge happened while we were there. And it was I think the ambiguous term that people say was a very kinetic time, dynamic environment, and I was learning a lot at a fast rate, or at least trying to learn a lot, and at that time, at least in our unit, for a variety of reasons, morale wasn't great. And we were moving all over Baghdad at the time, and we, my platoon and our company and our battalion had suffered some casualties, and that was humbling for me because I mean, it's not a little bit self-explanatory, but there were things that I could not control or could not impact in the way that I wanted to control or impact them. And we're all going to face that in some version of that, where you are in a situation that you cannot control every dynamic, you cannot control every input, and yet you are tasked with doing something that is important and impactful. And for me at the time, it was humbling to just see, feeling like I had influence over with my team, and I depended on my team for us all to do well. And also, I couldn't influence the bigger environment that we worked in, and it took time to turn the morale around a little bit. It's not the kind of environment where everybody's going to be high-fiving every single day, but it got better only because I leaned on my NCOs. I'll share a very brief story of working in Baghdad and receiving being tasked with rather ambiguous tasks and purposes, and there was a particular mission where we finished the thing we were supposed to do and we still had some time left, and my answer in the moment was, let's make, I'll be honest with you, let's make something up and be out in sector for another hour and a half, so that we hit this time standard that had been applied for us. And one of my squad leaders, Travis Crutcher, who we remain friends today, he pulled me aside. He said, "Hey, sir." In the way that NCOs can say sir, but there's a little bit of a little bit to it. Hey, sir. And he gave that to me. He's like, hey, I see us doing this thing, but do we really have to do this thing? And what are we trying to accomplish here? Here's the impact of the decisions that here's the impact of the decisions that you're making on the team. And I wasn't seeing it. I was blind to it. And he cared enough about me to give me that feedback and give me an opportunity to respond to it, which I appreciated. But I couldn't have grown without him doing it with a hey, sir. And after that, we developed a friendship that has lasted. But I had to rely on the team in an environment where I could not control all the inputs, and in which we were tasked with doing something that was hard at times.
Excellent, thanks, Dan. Marshall, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, when I think about being humbled, I think about everyone used to warn me about the NBA. They'd say, "Hey, Marshall, I know you can really jump, and you're 7 feet. You can hit your head on the rim. You're pretty proud of that." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm pretty proud of that." They're like, "Well, in the NBA, everybody can do that. So what are you going to bring to the table then? What are you going to do to set yourself apart?" And I was humbled in the NBA for sure. But I really felt that feeling even more in the Ranger Regiment. And I don't have a specific moment for you when I was humbled, but I can tell you every day I'm humbled by the people I get to work with. And it's very much an environment like that. These guys, they're the only reason they're not in the NBA is because they're not 7 feet tall, but they're among the best teammates I've ever had. And if I know anything, I know teammates. And it's super humbling. If I think I'm a smart guy, I'll go hang out in a strike cell for just a couple minutes and feel like the dumbest guy in the world with all the brain power in there. I think I'm kind of strong, I'll go to the gym. There's a Ranger that's going to outlift me and kick my butt there too. So I'm constantly you can try to find a place. I think the only thing I can really kick people's butt in is the 8-foot wall on obstacle courses. I'm really good at that. I might be the best. But other than that, I'm just getting humbled all the time, every day. And I wouldn't shy away from that feeling of being humbled. If anything, I'd chase it if I were you guys, because those are the best teams to be on.
Great. Thank you, gentlemen. Next question.
Sir, Cadet Ba, my question goes out to Lieutenant Plumlee. Sir, how difficult was it for you to give up an MBA career to pursue an Army career? And how were you able to make that decision?
So it was difficult, but it was made a lot less difficult by the people that I had in my life that helped me make that decision. Also, I'd be lying if I didn't say, Pat Tillman had a tremendous influence on my decision, in the sense that I can't imagine the courage and the bravery it took for someone like him to make that decision, being among, I'm not a history buff, but I imagine the first to make a decision on that level. So for me, when I make the decision, people say, hey, you're a little crazy. No, I'm not crazy. Look what this guy did, and look at the impact that he had, Pat Tillman. And I really look up to him. But that's the only way I would compare our stories, because one thing I personally don't feel like we should be in the same sentence, because he was 10 times the athlete I ever was. And now that I've been in the regiment, I've learned he was 10 times the Ranger too. He's just a phenomenal, he's someone to aspire to emulate. But his example helped me make that transition. And when Pat Tillman left the NFL, he was turning that, what was it, a $9 million contract?
3.6.
He was turning down. When I left the NBA, everyone said, no, not Mason Plumlee. We could really use him this year. They're like, oh, no, it wasn't Mason, it's the other brother. They're like, oh, Miles, like, oh, he's pretty good. Like, why is he leaving? They're like, no, it's another. They're like, there's another one. They're like, oh, he's the not very good. He's good. And so I can't put my decision in the same context as someone like Pat Tillman. Again, aspire to him, emulate towards him. There are a lot of people that told me, hey, you're making the worst mistake of your life. You're going to regret it forever. And I can tell you the moments when my first sergeant is kicking me out of a UH-60 for a jump, or we're getting to be a part of making an impact in a combat zone somewhere around the world. I have not regretted my decision at all. And then there have been brief moments in Ranger School when my peanut butter sandwich falls in the dirt and I still got to eat it with all that dirt on. I regret it a little bit, but it's few and far between.
Great, thank you. I think we had a question up here in the front. Go ahead.
Hello. Gentlemen, thank you all for coming today. My question is for the whole panel. Whether it's in the court, the classroom, or even in combat, adversity oftentimes isn't just solo. It's you suffered through it as a team. What lessons have you learned about leading through that adversity, with all the expectations that come with being a leader, but also the challenges that come with that lack of experience and having to lean on those sometimes below you?
Colonel Gatson, can we ask you to take that one first, sir?
So great question. What I've found in terms of your challenges as being a leader is to really be a transparent, to be forefront, communicate. And so to me, when adversity shows up, it's not to say that it's not anticipated or always anticipated, but you have a team, as you said, a team that has great communication, has a great understanding of what it is you're trying to accomplish. There's trust that those around you understanding the mission and intent will make decisions that are consistent with accomplishing the mission. And so the requirements on us as leaders is substantial. If you're in an organization, you're the kind of leader that's keeping your cards close to you. If you're not keeping folks informed, when that monkey of adversity is on your back, you're already behind the power curve. You're already having to recommunicate and reorganize because you haven't empowered your organization. You haven't given that trust and an extension. I see that patch on your shoulder, so I know you're part of organizations that kind of understand and are able to operate independently because you communicate effectively, I suspect. Look, leadership is not about your power. You know, as we talked about this word humility, you remain humble to your responsibility and to those that you're entrusted in. It is, and so that humility should lead to trust, that should lead to empowering, it should lead to being an effective and constant communicator so that you can handle this adversity is handled in a much more efficient manner.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have time for about 2 more questions.
My question's for the whole panel. We talked a lot about leading through adversity for yourself, but what do you do when your NCO gets a divorce or someone dies in the platoon? How are you leading your subordinates through adversity?
Marshall, let's start with you on this one.
To me, the battle for those moments is fought before the moment itself. You got to establish that trust with whether that be a subordinate or a peer, or even you got to help someone out above you. Have you established the trust to that point that they know you truly have their best interests in heart, that you don't have any kind of agenda? And for me, to build that trust, I place a big premium, and I'm stealing this one. Coach K places a big premium on secure leaders. Are you secure enough in what you bring to your table that you're not worried about yourself? You're more worried about the people around you. You're more worried about making them as good as they can be. And that's something he instilled in me really early on. You know, people think Coach K is at Duke is a big X's and O's basketball guy, and he is. He is great X's and O's, but he coaches character. He coaches, hey, how can you get to the point where your teammate trusts that you have his best interests at heart? And the way he would do it is he would show us game film, and he'd pause the film, and he'd zoom in on me as the 15th man on the bench. And he'd say, hey, you know, your buddy Jaleel Okafor, he's scoring a basket right now. I notice you're not clapping as hard for him as you did for the last guy that was in the game. Are you hoping he does bad? Are you hoping that he gets hurt so that you can play more? What's going on here? Marshall, I think right now you're kind of young. You're an insecure leader. You're thinking about yourself. And so that was a big turning point for me to learn to become a secure leader, confident in what I bring to the table, to where I'm not thinking about myself anymore, and I'm thinking about making the people to my left and right better. If you're constantly living and acting as a leader like that, that's making people to the left and right better, when they come up on that big friction point, when they're dealing with that disappointment or the divorce, they don't have to worry that you have some kind of agenda. They know they can approach you, and they know that you truly have their best interests at heart. So I kind of a roundabout way, I'd encourage you guys to be secure leaders, secure in yourself, and your soldiers will be more likely to come to you when they're in that time of need.
Dan.
Yeah, my answer to that question is you know, it's not dissimilar from Lieutenant Plumlee here, but the way that I'd articulate it is do not pretend. You know, if your team is having going through a thing, I think you used NCO going through a divorce or there's a casualty, don't pretend to be something you're not. Don't pretend to feel a way that you don't. Don't pretend to know a thing that you don't. You know, you leave an institution like this, and you kind of get a lot packed into you, education wise, experience wise, etc. But when you get out in the world, and I would say this applies today, if you don't know a thing, the most powerful thing you can say as a leader is, I don't know. What do you guys think? What do you, excuse me, what do you guys and gals think? I think there is a, I know for myself that I have a lot of gifts, but I don't have all of them, and I can't do everything by myself. And I say this to my team frequently, that hey, I don't know the answer to this one. Here's something. Let's try it out. In the case of some interpersonal circumstances that you referenced, the question referenced, I would say be human. If you've had some experiences that personally that maybe weren't that great, maybe you share them and you say like, oh man, I went through this thing too, and it kind of sucked. Like, sorry, man, let me give you a hug, and then go on. But I said, do not pretend. And as I say this from experience, NCOs, your soldiers will sniff it out in a second if you try to pretend. So you're much better off, and you're going to create a better connection and build some trust, as Lieutenant Plumlee said, if you're open about that. Now, you can't know nothing, so do your homework. But if you don't know a thing, I'd say be open about that.
Yes, sir. Colonel Gatson, sir, do you have anything else you'd like to add to that?
I would just this is a human moment. I hope that in a situation like that, that it's at that moment it's not a complete surprise. That's part of the relationship. That's part of understanding your teammates, but sometimes those things do surprise. Look, your humanity, your ability to connect with your teammates, your soldiers is how you get through it with them. And as Dan said, you don't have to have all the answers. You just sometimes being a great listener might be all that needs. But just stay attentive and stay alert. And again, you don't have to solve every problem for everyone. Sometimes just listening is tremendous.
Thank you, gentlemen. Cadets, I'm sorry, we're going to have to close the floor for questions right now. I see that we have some to ask. Our panelists will remain after the event in case you want to follow up. I'm now going to close the floor for questions, but we're going to ask our panel for closing remarks before we get the Commandant back up here to close things out. So Colonel Gadson, sir, once again, we're going to start with you with closing remarks.
Keep having me go first, sir. Okay, look, this is truly, sir, to General Quander, it is truly a privilege to be before so much talent, so much promise for our future and for our country and for our Army, to be here to pass on a few thoughts and perspectives and lessons that we've shared along the way. Look, every day you have a chance to be your best self. And I would just encourage you and challenge you all to focus on being your best self. You all know the difference between right and wrong. No one has to teach you that. But you have to focus on being your best. Being your best. Because that habit of being your best will turn into your character. And that's the character, that's the leadership that we're going to need in the future. You will undoubtedly be faced with adversity. And I hope that maybe you think about this moment, you think about this time where some old grad is telling you that your character matters, leadership matters. We hear it all the time. You've probably heard it in your sleep because it's like we're beating it like a dead horse, but it's important. Be your best self. Thank you.
Thanks.
I think for this stage of your life, this stage of your leadership journey, the only thing that I can say that hopefully lands, even if just for one person in here, is to pay attention to your own self-reflection. Get to know yourself. And it's might be kind of a funny thing to say, but the more you can take time and get to know yourself, get to know the things that you're good at, the things that you're not good at, the things that under stress, what is a default behavior that you go to, and when you're bored, like I don't expect you're bored too often here, but how do you feel? Where do you go? Get to know yourself and make that a conscious activity that you engage with, just like you might engage with improving your 2-mile time. If you don't have a mission statement for yourself that explains to yourself and the audience of one, the audience is you alone. If you don't have a mission statement for yourself that says, here's who I am and here's what I care about and here's who I hope to be in the world, then I'd encourage you to take time. What's your own mission statement? And it doesn't have to adhere to the Army version of mission statements. Make it your own. But for me, I look at somebody like Pat and what I see in the way that he lived his life and what we know from the journal entries that he left us. That he was an individual who did a ton of self-reflection, and he used his own journaling to get his thoughts out a little bit. And he was somebody that when the time came, he was drafted by the Cardinals, and a year or two into his contract, the then St. Louis Rams offered him $9 million to change teams. And what he said was, no, I'm not going to take that significant increase in pay to leave the team that brought me here. One of the things that he cared about was loyalty. I'm going to be loyal to the team that brought me to the NFL, a dream that he had for a decade or more, a couple decades before that. So he knew that about himself. So when he got to that moment, I imagine that it wasn't hard. When it got to the moment post 9/11 where he was asking himself, what can I do? By the writings that he left us, while it took a lot of deliberation, it actually wasn't a hard decision at the end of the day because he knew himself. And he knew that he wasn't driven by money. He wasn't driven by fame. He wasn't driven by attention. When he joined 2nd Ranger Battalion, he said, I will never give another interview while I'm in uniform here. And he did not, because he didn't need to be better or bigger or badder than the person to his left or his right. He only could do that authentically because he took time to get to know himself and reflect. So I'd encourage you to do that. And when I talked about feeling an obligation of duty in my own life and all the people that contributed, for everybody in this room, we got 350 million taxpayers out here making sure that you are able to have this opportunity. This is a gift that a lot of people didn't have. The way that I'd say it is like, and not that this is news to you, but like you owe it to this country to invest in yourself in the way that everybody is investing in you. But thank you so much for having me here.
And then I guess for me, what I want to leave you guys with when I look at you guys, I get a visit and see how you run things here at West Point. From my perspective, it looks like you guys are getting a shot in the arm of some high-level standards of how to act as an officer, but as an individual too. And I'd encourage you to really guard those, hang on to those, because it's a little easier to do it now when you're forced to, or there are people around you doing them with you. But what about when you move on from here and maybe you're at an Army unit that the standards aren't quite as high as they were here at West Point? Are you going to fall to theirs, or are you going to raise them to yours? And it's not always a popular move to stick to some of the standards, to the making your bed and folding your clothes just right. But if you stick with that, the proof's in the pudding with West Point. You'll be ready when your number's called. For me, I draw parallels to when I was at Duke. We had a brand of basketball that was very specific. We had very specific standards that to the normal basketball player, you'd get made fun of a little bit. I remember I was on the Knicks. We were playing the Celtics, and I am the 15th man on the team. Not only that, I'm the 5th center, and most teams didn't want 2 centers. For some reason, the Knicks wanted 5. I was the 5th. And in between quarters, I would run up and down the sidelines and do jumping jacks. I want to stay warm. I want to stay ready if my number's called, because that's what I was taught at Duke. The Celtics fans are making fun of me, and even my teammates start to make fun of me a little bit. Like, Marshall, Joakim Noah's got to get hurt. Kylo Quinn's got to foul out. Billy Hernan Gomez has got to get sick, and Kristaps Porzingis has to come up dead before you're going to check in the game. And again, I'm getting made fun of for living up to a standard I was taught. But I did it anyways, maybe blindly even. And hey, something like that happened. One of them fouled out, one of them got hurt, and Plumlee, you're in the game. And small moment for me, for the team, big moment for me, get to help us beat the Celtics. I didn't play a lot of games, but I probably wouldn't have even gotten to play one game if I wasn't ready and if I didn't hold myself to those standards that I was taught at Duke. Now, in the military, I'm sure there's talk amongst you guys where we're shifting, away from certain conflicts, and I can't help but see that parallel. Are you guys going to hold yourself to the same standards as when we were in those conflicts, so that when our number is called, you don't have to warm up? You're already ready to go and to get in the game and get in the fight.
Gentlemen, thank you for your inspiring remarks today. Before I turn it over to the Commandant to close out, I just want to acknowledge a few key organizations and individuals. To the Modern Warfare Institute staff, thank you for arranging this today. Department of Military Instruction, thank you for your augmentation. ICAL staff, always appreciate you making sure I don't screw this up too badly. Also, one last thing, I want to acknowledge the officers and NCOs from the 3rd Battalion of 75th Ranger Regiment under the command of Captain Brian Walter. These Rangers aren't on stage with us today, but they've been a big presence here at the Academy. Gentlemen, thank you for coming. As the Commandant makes his way to the podium for his final remarks, I'd like our cadet presenters to please present these small tokens of appreciation to you for your time here. Thank you, gentlemen.
Hey, I'll keep it short, but a couple of things. So first of all, thank you for our awesome and distinguished panel for giving your thoughts and ideas about leading through adversity. So a couple of things. So first, we're all going to face adversity. That's going to be something that's going to be predictable. But I think one thing that you heard is you have a choice to make. How you work through that adversity, you absolutely have a choice to make in how you lead through that adversity. And you heard 3 different perspectives from our 3 different panelists here today. Now is your opportunity, your time to figure out how you're going to lead through adversity. I would submit that continue to lead through adversity through character and do it honorably. And that's kind of the expectation as you move forward from here. But again, thank you to our awesome panelists. Colonel Retired Greg Gatson, who has been phenomenal through the years and has been a great partner with the Academy, Mr. Dan Futrell and Marshall Plumlee. Thank you all for your words, and let's give them another round of applause.
Plebes and yearlings, I'm very proud of you today. You showed up on time. You showed up in force. You asked some very thoughtful questions. Please feel free to stand by and talk to our guests further. Otherwise, on the behalf of the Commandant, you're dismissed. Thank you.